I see now like what my purpose was and why I had to go through those type of things. And
Today on the show, we have a West Virginia native and Purdue alum. She's currently an assistant coach with the University of Memphis women's basketball program. Whitney Bays is up next. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today's episode is the fourth in our special limited series featuring the staff of the University of Memphis women's basketball program. She was a West Virginia high school star and then broke records at Purdue University before taking her talents overseas, where her star continued to shine. She's one of the new assistant coaches for the University of Memphis women's basketball program. Welcome to the show, Coach Whitney Bays. Hi, Whitney.
hey everybody.
Before we get into our conversation with Whitney, I want to remind everyone that the Memphis women's basketball tickets are on sale at GoTigersGo.com. The season kicks off with the first home game November 9th versus Alabama State at the Elma Rome Fieldhouse on the main campus of the University of Memphis. Season tickets start as low as $31 plus some change, and I hope to see everyone there. I will be there rooting you guys on, you ladies on. Okay, so Whitney, a couple of things. Michael's not with us today. It's hard enough for three people to schedule, but you guys have a really tight schedule getting this close into preseason. And
Right.
so just Michael couldn't make it today for this episode, but I'm just as good as he is. And so we're just going to rock it and make everything okay. So let's start off with where you grew up. I kind of mentioned you're a West Virginia star because and this is what I told you before we started the interview. I have a girl crush on you. Like, seriously, I was reading your record. So let's talk about, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in like a small town. I'm a country girl.
I am too. That's okay.
West Virginia. Shout out to my people back home. But
and what's the city? What's the city?
It's Huntington. West Virginia. Yes. Yeah. It's very small town. You know, kind of everybody knows everybody. There's a university there, so it's kind of like a basketball town, a college town a little bit. But yeah, very small.
Okay, the true test of how small it is how many red lights do you have?
Okay, so we got to cut. It's a city. It's like there's a city there. We got a few red lights, but yeah.
I think it was like Caitlin's interview that I was talking to her about, and she was like, we have one red light. I'm like, ooh, I have three. I had three where I grew up.
Yeah, that's a little smaller maybe than Huntington, but compared to Memphis, it is a small town.
Interesting. You know, I used to think Memphis was small until I moved to Houston. And then I was like, well, no, I used to think Memphis was big until I moved to Houston. And then I was like, oh my God, Memphis is like such a small town. Okay, so when did you start? Like you're a basketball legend in West Virginia. When did you start playing basketball?
I started playing in elementary school when I was around like 9 or 10. I really got into it because my dad was coaching my sister at the time, and I always had to watch. I was too young to play, and I just remember watching it and being like, I want to do this. Like, instantly, hadn't even played, and I just loved it. And then eventually when I got older and got the chance to play, like, I loved playing. And I couldn't score, but I loved playing defense. I loved stealing the ball. I loved getting rebounds, and I passed to my teammates.
Wow, because you don't
hustle plays.
Yeah, you don't hear a lot of athletes saying that they love to get it and give. Did your father play basketball in college?
He did. He played at Marshall, which is the university in Huntington.
Okay, and did he play overseas or professionally at any place?
He did. I believe he played in Holland and maybe Finland, something like that.
See, I'm always looking for new guests on our podcast. I'm always looking for that. How tall were you when you were 9 years old? Were you taller than the other? Because how tall are you now? Let me talk
6'2".
Yes, yes, you are. You are. But how tall were you? Taller than the other kids when you were 9 or 10 years old?
I think I was taught for a girl, but I think I kind of like blended in with the pack. It wasn't until I got
Right.
to high school that I was like, okay, I'm starting to look down on people. I could
Right.
see the top of everyone's head. And yeah, that was its own, you know, identity crisis in
Sure.
itself.
Especially for
So,
a girl, especially
yes,
for a girl. I know
yes,
my niece was, when she was 12, she was 5'9",
oh,
and
wow, yeah.
she had a really hard time because she was so much taller than she never went into playing sports or anything, but do you remember that moment when you just, you talked about how when you got older, you just really loved playing basketball. But do you remember a moment where you were like, "I love this game"?
Honestly, the first time I ever played it, like I just fell in love with it. And like I said, I wasn't really like good offensively, but I loved playing defense and blocking people's
Mhm.
shots and like competing. That was the biggest thing. Like I like competing. And then from there, I grew up playing against guys actually. Yeah, and
Ah.
they would kind of, bruise me up, but I think that's where I got my finesse from. I got my toughness from and just getting they made me a lot better. Yeah.
So,
Growing
I
up.
think that is something for parents out there to, as long as, we never want people to get hurt. I was watching the football games this past, let's talk about Colorado. Okay, I stayed up till
Yeah,
2 a.m. watching that game, but football's a really, really, it's a really, I don't even know what the word, it's a dangerous sport.
yeah,
And basketball can be, for the most part, it's not unless you're jumping and coming down weird or
yeah.
something like that. But you mentioned you liked rebounding, and I'm just going to be your little PR person because I want to talk about. Let's see if I've got my information right. At Purdue,
Mhm.
you had the top rebounding average in school history
Yes.
at 8.9 per game, and you rank third all time with 23 career double doubles. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanna give a shout out to you.
Thank
Um,
you, thank
um,
you.
so did you play basketball, for your middle school or junior high team?
Yeah, so I played in middle school, really was that's when I kinda got better offensively, I guess you could say, and then in high school, it just kinda took off.
So let's talk about high school because, again, I'm gonna be calling out your stats. Um,
Yeah.
so you were named the 2009 West Virginia Player of the Year after
Mhm.
leading your high school, Huntington High School, to 3 consecutive state final appearances.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, at the time too, it's crazy because when you're like living through it, I was always just disappointed because I always wanted to win the
Sure.
championship.
Sure.
So like I never even took the time to like reflect on like my personal stats, if that makes
Right.
sense.
No, it does. When
So
you're in the moment, you're just when you're in the moment, you're living those emotions.
yeah,
You don't
yeah.
care about anything else.
Yeah, yeah, and it kinda stuck with me, and then later on, we'll probably get into it. It's how I actually got into coaching, which is, like, ironic. Yeah, so we'll get back
Excellent.
to it.
Okay.
There's a story behind it.
I know, because I read some of that too. I did my research last night.
Yeah,
Okay, so you're in high school. You're basically a phenom there. Okay, I'm just going to use that word.
thank you.
And you really had a great career in high school. When did you start getting recruited by colleges?
So, I started actually getting interest and, like, invited into camps when I was in middle school.
Wow.
So, yeah, and back then, the recruiting process was so different, and I can't actually I think it was
What was the year? So just for everybody out there, let's put that in perspective because for a lot of you coaches now that are on the staff,
mhm.
you kind of started when there was no social media.
Right,
And then you kind of finished out when there was social media. So I think that is an
right.
interesting aspect. So what year
I
was
remember getting my first mail when I was in the 7th grade.
do you remember what year that was?
Yeah. Probably around 2004,
Okay.
2005, something like that. Maybe
Yeah.
2006, but
Yeah.
yeah. And then I remember my summer going into my freshman year, it got real crazy. I don't remember because there was timelines when they could recruit you and send out
Sure.
mail. So like the rules were way different, but I just remember there was one day that me and my mom came home and we couldn't open the door. And I was like, "What is going on?" And we had one of those mailboxes that was like at the
In
bottom
the door?
in
Yeah.
the door.
Yeah.
And we pushed the door open and there was like hundreds and
Oh
hundreds of
my
just like
god.
letters. Yes, yes. It was
That
a
is crazy.
wild
How
experience.
did that make you feel at that moment?
Again, and I think coming from like a small town, like I didn't even really know that I was that good at basketball yet.
Right.
And I didn't know that I could get a scholarship or like I could get my school. Yes, like I was just out there literally having fun playing, trying to be the best player out there. Like I wanted to make people like talk about me and stuff, but I didn't know that I was good enough to get like a scholarship and stuff.
So it's
Yeah.
interesting because like Caitlin's parents also played basketball and
Hmm.
her mom was her high school coach. But I'm curious about your dad was obviously because he had been through college and played pro. So he's
Yeah.
probably just letting you enjoy the game, which is, I think, what parents should do, you know?
My dad, he was real hard on me. He really pushed me, um, and like kept me humble throughout my process. But I just feel like we never really had that conversation of like I guess when I was younger, going until I went to high school and got all those letters, it was just like you're getting better at basketball, but it was never like what is the goal. I just know I wanted to play pro. You know what I mean? I wanted to be in the W. Yes, so I didn't know. I never really thought about the steps, which is crazy of getting there until I
It's
started
not
getting
crazy.
recruited. Yeah,
You know,
I just
it's not crazy because I know several coaches that coach middle school and high school and they
mhm.
and you know they talk about, you know, the kids don't really think about the process. You
Yeah,
know, they're just like, I want to be Steph Curry or I want to be
yeah,
LeBron James. And they don't think about what's involved in the process, not
yeah.
only the recruiting aspect, but also the conditioning, the, you know, the repetitive drills and all that kind of stuff. But I lost my train of thought because I had a question about what your dad had said. Well, we'll go on. So,
Yeah.
so, and I do believe you said you got injured when you were in high school.
I did. It was going into my senior year. Um, just it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever been through. When we talk about the recruiting process back then, also like I didn't have social media,
Right.
so like now everybody posts all their offers online. So that was like another factor leading into it. And people don't talk about like the pressure
Yeah.
sometimes that comes with that and being a top player in your state or even in the country, like the expectation. I used to tell people I could have, 16 and 15 rebounds and I was like overrated, but then I'd have 30 and 10 and I'm a ball hog and
Right.
so it was just always an expectation of, and it's kind of hard to deal with when you're young, you know what I mean, if you don't have people guiding you in the right direction.
So, how did you deal with that?
Really my family, like my mom was a big support system, my sister, she was the same height as me and
Right.
she hated basketball actually. So they really saw me as like a person before a player.
Sure.
And I
Sure.
think that's like very important, especially when you're young. All these grown adults have these expectations of you.
Yeah.
And that goes back to even me not winning a state championship. You know what I mean? People are like, how is this one of the top players in the country and she can't win a
Sure.
state championship? So
You know,
just
I
those
think
pressures.
is it I'm not going to try to do my best. There's some really great basketball NBA player who would never won an NBA championship.
Yeah.
And he always gets slack about that. But you know, a team is made up of more than one person
Right.
and you're playing
Right.
against another team that's really good. So you're going into your senior year, you get injured, you've just had two state tournaments
Yeah.
where you have lost
Or
in the final, in the
it was
championship.
3, so I
3.
didn't play my senior year. Yep.
Okay, so you didn't play your senior year.
Yeah.
So mentally, that had to have been really, really hard on you.
Yeah, and it was just like I had never seriously been hurt. So just the I had tore my ACL. So just like going through therapy to just get to back to being normal, I guess you could
Sure.
say, was, and then going through the mental block of like, how am I gonna be when I come back? Like, I'm actually scared I might get hurt again because
Right.
it hurt really bad. I missed a lot. I wasn't nominated for the McDonald's All American game and stuff, which things I knew I would have gotten if I hadn't gotten hurt. There was records at the school I thought I'd be close to breaking USA tryouts I had to miss. So it was a lot to deal with
Wow.
at a young age. Yeah.
Did the recruiting kind of slow down your senior year after the injury?
Actually, no. So
Really?
yeah, I was very blessed to still have the schools that were. I had almost narrowed it down to like my top five
What were
by
your
the end
top
of.
5?
It was Louisville, Georgia, Maryland, and I want to say, Lord, I'm trying to remember. Maybe Florida State, something
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you
Yep.
didn't play. So k how did you get injured? Was it during a game, during a practice?
It was during an AAU tournament, and yeah, it was during a game. And it's crazy because they always say you get hurt when you're playing your best, and it was like one of. I just remember there was tons of coaches there, and yeah,
Oh,
I went
wow.
up for like a jump shot, and on the way up, my knee gave out on me, and it
Ooh.
was right then I knew because my sister had tore both of her ACLs.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
yeah. So right when it happened, I knew, and I just told my mom, I'm like, "This is bad. It's real bad."
So how
But
did you narrow it down to? Because you started your career at Maryland.
yeah, yeah.
How did you narrow that down?
I was big on relationships, like you said back then. It was kind of different, so all you really had to rely on was like the mail
Yeah.
and like phone calls. So I just remember Maryland and Georgia were my top two schools, and I just had built those relationships with those coaches very strong. Um, and they kept recruiting me after I got hurt. They came to a bunch of my high school games. They, were out on the road when I was playing AU at every game. So that meant a lot to me too.
I think that also says a lot about the talent you had and what
Mm.
they saw despite the injury, because an ACL tear is pretty significant.
Yeah, and especially kind of back then, like I know just with research and stuff, like the different types of ACL grafts you can get nowadays is like it's just gone really far. So yeah, I expected people to fall off of me. I wasn't really sure, but again, once I got hurt and saw that they were still kind of committed to me and
Right.
still calling me the same and still, you know what I mean? They came on home visits to my West Virginia to see me.
Right.
So that was like,
That
yeah,
that's pretty impressive, and you
thank
didn't
you.
play your senior year. That's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
So you go to Maryland, and
Mm,
did you have anxiety about playing in Maryland? Playing on a
mm,
college stage as opposed to a high school stage? I've asked a lot of our other guests about that. A lot of them
mm.
have had anxiety about playing in bigger arenas.
So it's funny because like the basketball part, I never had anxiety about. Now I didn't know how hard it was going to be once I got there, but I was more nervous about being away from my family. I think there was only a few people in my whole class that actually moved out of the state of West
Oh,
Virginia. Yeah.
wow.
So just being away from my family and how that dynamic would work.
So what was the you said the basketball was much harder. What was so
Yes.
hard about it?
The well, one, I was coming off of my injury, so I actually didn't really recover the right way. Like I had what it's a long story, but I had ACL failure. So it was like
Okay.
I had the surgery, but yeah, so I basically played at Maryland, kind of with a bad ACL, and just like working through that, the lifting and conditioning.
Sure.
So I played with guys, but I had never had a trainer. I had never lifted weights.
Wow.
Yeah, I just was like one of those kids that went and played pickup all day long.
But you know,
Like,
I think and maybe not so much, but I think there's a lot of kids out there in junior high and high school that
yeah,
don't even lift weights or don't think about it. And there's coaches out there that don't even, I think about it or really think that there's
yeah,
value
and
in it.
or even just like injury prevention. Like I remember I didn't know anything about like really stretching and like, like I was
That's
just
what
kind of like,
Shelby said too.
yeah, like
She That
lace
was
them
her
up,
advice. Stretch. That's what she said.
lace them up and go, like kind of girl. But yeah, and like nowadays, I feel like social media is big. Like you can get on YouTube and look up like a weight,
Yes.
like look up how to lift weights. We didn't have any of that, so it was just kind of like I just tried to play pickup whenever I could with whoever I could. So
Right. So was the injury in the ACL failure in the hardness of just that, was that the reason you left Maryland?
yeah, pretty much. A lot of people. I stayed there for 2 years. I enjoyed like the city. I loved living in
Right.
DC. You know, we talk about Memphis, how big
Yeah,
that city is. DC's a really big
it
city.
is.
The culture up there and stuff like that. But after I got hurt, I just kind of had a lot again. I had to have another ACL
Right.
surgery. I kind of just like lost all my confidence, and it was crazy because when I was thinking about transferring, I was about to just go home to Marshall. Like I
Right.
didn't see myself as that player anymore.
So what changed your perspective? Because you ended up at Purdue.
Yeah. So one of the people on the staff at Purdue hit me up and they were like, "You need to come on a visit." And I just remember I was real like hesitant to even go because, like I said, I just didn't see myself like that anymore. But I ended up going, and I love the facilities. The people were super nice. You know, Purdue's a big like education school, which is
Right.
something I hadn't even thought of until I got hurt. Like you got to think, I was just thinking, get to the league, get to the league. So I
So
hadn't really, yeah,
interesting though, because when we started our podcast and we started like thinking about guests, we realized, I was like, Michael, we don't have a lot of women because
yeah,
there's not, and you and I had talked about that. There's not a lot of pro options for women coming out of high school,
yeah,
and most girls, we have realized, already have their plan B is basketball. Their plan
right,
A is something else. But you were actually different. Your plan A was basketball.
yeah. That's
And you weren't
all.
even thinking about anything else.
Like when they asked me what I wanted to, I went into Maryland with an undecided major. I had never saw myself. I made good grades, like that was never an issue for me, but I had never saw myself other than a basketball player.
So I remember my question now. You said that, you had grown up really watching the WNBA. Who was your idol player? Like who was the player
I
that
love me some Candace Parker. I
okay.
think, Lisa Leslie. I really liked girls that were tall that could like but guard like. You know
Right.
what I mean? Maya Moore. Back Cheryl Swoops in them. So old school.
Get ready for an action packed season of the University of Memphis women's basketball. Experience the thrill, the passion, and the power of women's basketball right here in Memphis. Be part of the excitement. Join us in the stands and cheer on our Memphis Tigers. Don't miss out. Get your season tickets today at GoTigersGo.com.
But I actually watched a lot of the NBA too. So I was like a big NBA fan because you gotta think I was always playing around guys. They were always talking
Sure.
about the NBA, who's gonna win this game, who's gonna win that game. So it's just like I was like a little tomboy.
That's okay. That's okay. I
Right.
was too. I just didn't play sports.
Right.
So you're at Purdue, and now you start thinking about education, and
Hmm.
and we did you still had your mindset on the WNBA, or were you straddling the fence then?
I thought I would go to Purdue and be a bench player.
Wow, and you did not.
Because
Looking
I
at your
was coming off
stats.
my second ACL. I just like I don't know if I've got nothing left in the tank for this. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I wanted to once I got there, I wanted to play in the Big Ten. I was like, if I'm gonna go to a school, I wanted to get a good education, and if by some chance God makes it that I'm able to play again, the way I know I can play, I want to be playing the best people.
What do
So
you
that was
think
kind of
what do you think really changed that mindset and made you start believing in yourself more and wanting more?
ironically my coach. She's probably mad at me because when I went to Purdue, she tried to get me to like sign there, and I was like, I just got to think about it. But she really like, I
Let's
remember
give her a
sitting
shout out. Let's give her
yeah,
a shout
it
out.
was Coach Versa.
Okay.
But yeah, she really sat me down and was like, I still believe in you. Like, I still think we can get you to the player that you were and even better. Their trainer there, Jessica, she really, like, they really individualized everything to me. Like, here's your plan. Like, this is how. And they had so much technology, like, that I had never, like, really used before,
Right.
like an underwater treadmill. So it was kind of like they kind of set the picture in motion for me. Like, okay, I can really recover here, get top of the line therapy. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, so they gave me hope, really.
And again, I want to say that really speaks to the talent that they saw in you.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
were coming off your second surgery
hmm
and you had not, I want to say, not had great time at Maryland, obviously, because of
right.
that. And they're like recruiting you hard as an injured player coming off, going into recovery. That says a lot about you. That
Yeah.
says a lot
Well,
about your
thank you.
talent and that you set records in just 2 years at Purdue.
Yeah, and it's funny because I don't ever want to say I regret anything, but some of the things that I took into consideration on my second visit, I kind of wish I would have like took into consideration when I
Right.
was going through the process, but I didn't know. So I had to go through those things to learn.
So,
And I
what was
think,
one of the
go ahead,
things that you regret?
just like my education and
Right.
stuff, and what I wanted to major in, and I was coming off an injury, so I remember when I was at Maryland, I didn't really ask that many questions about like recovery, and you know what I mean. I was just thinking, play, play,
Right.
like they took me to like a Mystics game. They showed it to me, but and then yeah, just like teammates and stuff like that, like
You know,
style of play, all
I
that.
think those questions are important because the as you call them, possibly regrets. I think that, that was one of the things about our podcast series that we wanted to do was that, there are all these kids out there that all of the advice, all the things that you've gone through and everybody else has gone through, we want to share that with all these young
Yeah,
athletes and let them, hey, this is this story, this is this story, and no, they have to make their own mistakes, but
yeah,
I think that is, and it, but it also makes you who you are today, and it also makes
yeah.
you a huge asset to our women's team. Um, so
Thank you.
you had great success at Purdue, and when you got through there because you graduated from Purdue. Did you graduate while you were still
Yes.
playing? Okay, and what's your
Yeah.
major?
It was in sociology, and then I got a minor in business.
Excellent. What was in your head about those 2 majors? What did you see you doing with those 2 majors later on? Or was
Um,
there a
s-
thought?
so I really wanted to do something in business. I knew I wanted to do that, but so some of the classes that I actually took at Maryland, they wouldn't like transfer over. So I was kind of yeah stuck. I remember my academic counselor at Purdue gave me like two options, and it was like sociology or
Wow.
yeah. So that's why I think it's important when you're getting recruited to know ask if you can major in the things that you want to major in.
Yeah,
Like, is the practice time going to be around my class schedule, or is my class schedule going to be around the practice time?
sure.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, they gave me the two options, and I actually really enjoyed studying sociology. I think it actually helped me
I do
because
too. I
it's
think
like
it's
a form of psychology in a way, but just looking at social factors. So yeah, I
and I
think it
think
actually really helped
I
me, and
think
I
that's
enjoyed it.
helpful in business too. I think it's helpful in
Hmm.
coaching. I think it's helpful in
Hmm.
so many aspects.
Yes.
So you're going through Purdue and you have
Mhm.
your mind set on the WNBA still?
Not
No,
yet. So like
not
my
yet.
first year, I did pretty good there. But I just remember, it's funny because like you do a movie, you're like, oh, that felt good. Like I can still do this. Like I remember doing that,
You're like, "I still got it."
but subconsciously I was still like gaining confidence. Like
Right.
that first year, like I was still like pushing those negative thoughts down, you trying to do the best in rehab, still kind of like recovering, I guess you could say.
Sure.
My numbers were decent, but I was still kind of going through like the recovery process of like mentally and emotionally, and then also trying to win games and help my team in that aspect. So I wasn't really necessarily thinking about me in the WNBA. But then going into my senior year, I remember I saw an article and they had me in like the mock draft, and I was like,
Wow.
wow, wow. I was like, I've come so far. So
Did that help your confidence a little bit?
it did. And I just knew we had lost a bunch of people. So at Purdue, my senior year, I just knew I was going to have to step into more of like a leadership role
Right.
and let go of some of my own fears and really focus on the team and trying to get the best out of the team at that
S
point, be a
so
leader.
so how did the NBA did you go through the NBA draft, WNBA draft?
So, no, I didn't get drafted. And I think part of that too is like there was opportunities that I kind of passed down after the season. Like I didn't go to the combine. I was actually recovering from a foot surgery that I had the year before, and just like I signed an agent late because I just really didn't trust people at the time, and
Sure.
I was nervous to sign with somebody, and I didn't really reach out to people and like see who. So I think a lot of stuff went into that, but I actually did find an agent, and I was about to go overseas, and then I had my daughter.
So let's talk about your daughter. I haven't had the
Yeah,
pleasure of meeting her yet. She's what, 7 or 8? I think she
yeah, she's 7.
7. How's she like in Memphis?
She loves it. She loves being around the basketball. I feel bad. The mom guilt's real. Like this morning we
Sure.
had 6 a.m.s and I had to get her out of bed, but she likes being in the workouts. Anything that she can get on the sideline and watch and do, she loves.
I think
So
that's awesome, and, that was one of the first things when I met you guys. You were talking, that I just fell in love with all of you because you were talking about it's a family unit,
yeah,
and they're all the ones that are all kind of going to school together,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And,
It's a campus thing.
they all come to the practices if they can, and they're gonna
Yeah,
travel with you guys, and I think that that's just I love that family feeling, and I
mhm,
just think that's awesome. So, I look forward to meeting your daughter in the
yeah. She'll be
future.
there. She's loud too, so you can't miss her.
So, that's an interesting aspect though, because,
Mhm,
for guys who are going through college and going
yeah,
into the NBA or playing overseas and they have kids, they don't have to necessarily deal with that. But as a
yeah.
female, obviously you do, you're the mom. So how
Right.
was that? Did that did that delay you playing overseas? Because you played overseas for several years.
Yeah, so the year that I was pregnant with my daughter, I did have to like obviously sit out, but it's funny because I still played pickup. I kind of
Oh,
actually hit it. Everybody thought, yeah, I had just quit playing basketball, but I'd still play pickup with like the local guys till I was about 6 months. And
oh
my
my
doctor told me to
god.
stop. Yeah, told me to stop because she was just scared I'd get hit in the stomach or
Sure.
something. But then after that, I just would run and still work out. And then the year after I had her in January, and then I went to the WNBA Combine in April. And then I got
Wow.
seen, and overseas team hit me up. Now I did have to take like a pay cut
Sure.
and work my way up because I had set out that year. But yeah, I felt like my daughter was worth it to me. You know what I mean?
So you didn't at that time though, that would have been easy for you to say, "My dream of basketball is over. I just need to
Right.
go home and get a
Yeah.
job."
Yeah.
And what
No,
so
for
why
sure.
didn't you think that? Like, what kept you going?
I just knew what type of player I was, and honestly, I just genuinely loved basketball. Like it was like my peace, my sanctuary. When I'm going through something hard, it got me through. it
Right.
was just I loved it. I genuinely loved playing basketball.
So you played overseas. What were the countries that you played in?
I played in Poland, Hungary, the Czech, Puerto Rico was my favorite.
And
So a
what
little bit of everywhere.
and why was Puerto Rico? Because you set some records there too. You
Yeah.
had some awards there. So why was Puerto Rico so great for you? Other than
It was just
playing
like
really
on the
well.
beach. I thought the environment was chill. Usually in Europe, you do like 2-a-days and stuff.
Mhm.
But
2 a
yeah,
day practices or 2 a day
yeah,
games? Okay.
2-a-day practices. And it was like a quick season. I was there for probably like 5 months, and we were playing games every other day. I loved that.
Right.
Like,
Did you take your
so
daughter with you?
I took her everywhere.
Oh, man, she is gonna be the most well-traveled, well-seasoned
Right,
kid ever.
right,
Um,
right.
so let's talk about your 5th quarter. So when
Mhm.
did that 5th quarter start? Was it quick? Was it slow process? Like when did that start?
It was kind of like abrupt. I actually got hurt again. And it's funny because I hurt my back and I had to have 3 back surgeries. But
Oh
I
my
honestly think, yeah,
god.
if I that hadn't gone through that, I probably would have never stopped playing basketball
So
until
did
something
you
like
have
that happened.
did you have the back surgeries like one right after the other, or what
Yeah,
was
so
the period of time?
it was like I was in the hospital for probably about a month. I had a back surgery, and then I had complications from that back surgery, the initial one that I had.
Right.
And I was in the hospital for like a month. I had to use a walker when I got out. So
Were
again,
you
it
in
was like
Puerto Rico or were you back in the
I came back
States?
in the United States,
Okay.
yeah. And it was just a humbling experience once again.
Sure it was, because you can't take care of yourself, period. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
humbling. Um, so then after that, what was your mindset? You just like, "I'm done?"
Yeah, in a sense, I still in my head was thinking I would somehow play. And I just remember I hit up my high school coach because I was getting real like down on myself,
Right.
depressed. Like I'm a very capable, like I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Independent is
Right.
great person. And with that surgery, I was having to depend on other
Yeah,
people to just like get around and do basic things, like help me put my pants on, my socks
yeah.
on. So it was very humbling. And I remember I hit my high school coach up and I was like, I just want to be around some basketball. Like I'm not feeling
Interesting.
right. I'm
Yeah.
just really down. He was like, come watch the practice. And I was like, all right, fine. And so I go up to the high school and I'm watching practice and I'm like, that's not right. Like they're not doing that. And I'm just thinking in my head. So I kind of start like coaching them up from the sideline, like and just building relationships with them. I couldn't even pick up a basketball, but I just kind of started coaching them up on the sideline. And he was like, would you want to coach? And that's kind of like where I switched my mind to like maybe it is time to give it up
Right.
and try to help other people with the knowledge that I've learned over the years. So yeah,
So how long did you spend, because you came on as an assistant coach at your high
yeah,
school?
yeah.
How long were you there?
I think it was like 2.5 years because I kind of got hurt like in at the beginning of their season. And then I ended up coming around like late November, probably early December. So it was like 2 years and a half.
So
Yep.
I just want to say, because you may not say this, but those two years you were at your high school as an assistant coach,
Mhm.
you helped lead the team to back state titles.
Yes.
Did that
Yeah.
feel good? Was that like a vindication of, not getting that in high school as a player?
It definitely was like a testament to God to me. Like, you go through these things, but everything comes back full circle. Like he makes no mistakes.
Right.
So it was just like one of those experiences of like I see now like what my purpose was and why I had to go through those type of things and it
What do you
was
think
amazing.
what do you think your
I'm
purpose
sorry.
is? No, 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 no. Hey, we want emotion.
I'm
We
over here
like
like
this. No,
God.
no. I always wanted to be Oprah, so hey. That like what do you think your purpose is?
you know,
You're gonna make me
one
start
of the
crying though.
one of the reasons I love coaching so much is you meet these people and you have an impact on their life and you learn so much about them and you watch them get better. I'm sorry.
That's
This is,
okay. You want
I
to
did
take
not think I was going to be doing
it?
this,
We're both gonna be crying.
especially at the high school level. And you just know that feeling. I know that feeling that I felt when I lost. And like, I just remember thinking I'm going to do everything possible so they don't have to feel that. And
And you
just to
did.
like, yeah,
You did.
that was the most rewarding thing. I didn't even really want it for myself, but I just wanted it for them. And I wanted to see them get better. And I wanted them to learn the game of basketball.
You know, the fundamentals and all the things that go with that
Yeah.
are such important. You know, it's not just about getting those baskets all the time. There's so much more to
Yeah.
basketball. I had somebody tell me a few weeks ago, they were like, you know, you can only, if you have the ball in your hand and you shoot it, you can only shoot it so many times. The other team
Right.
has to hold it. So what are you doing in the other
Right.
minutes? So
Right.
what made you decide to go to that next level? You've gone through 2 years at at Huntington, and what made you decide to, because I think after that you went to Gardner Webb?
Yeah. I just wanted more for myself a little bit. You know what I mean? I love coaching at that high school level. But I was like, I can kind of do this. The girls that I coached, they were great. I always tell them they're the reason that I like fell in love with coaching. But I just wanted to move up and you know what I mean, be at a higher level, um, competitively. I guess you could say.
Did you already know Coach Simmons?
I did not. I met her. Somebody had suggested to me to go to the Final Four, and it was really awkward for me because I'm usually like a shy person. Like I don't like approaching people,
Okay, yeah,
but
I
I
did not
did it
get that when I met
then.
you. I did not get you were shy.
Yeah, like that can kind of be uncomfortable for me. I know how to do it just because
Right.
of the situations that I've been through,
Sure.
but it always gets me sometimes to like step outside my box. But I remember thinking to myself, like, she looks so familiar. And I couldn't put it together, but I was like, let me just go introduce myself. Because she had spoke at one of the like seminars, and I was like, the stuff that she was saying, I was just like, this woman knows what she's talking about. Like,
Was
she's
this
a
the
great.
women's Final Four, the men's Final
Yes,
the
yes. So I
women's?
went as a high school coach, and I'm in there with all these college coaches. Most of the people that I played with, are like they knew me from playing, but they didn't know I was trying to get into coaching.
Right.
So yeah, just walking around trying to like introduce myself to people, and I was like, I went to one of her, like she wasn't supposed to speak, but she ended up speaking at a seminar, and I was like, I gotta talk to her, and then yeah, I introduced myself, and then later I like Googled her, and I was like, where do I know this woman from? She played with Candace Parker, and on that team,
I did not know she played with Candace Parker.
yeah.
Okay.
And on that team, though, was a girl from West Virginia, Alexis Hornbuckle, that I watched all the way through like middle school and elementary school, and that she played on the Tennessee team with them as well. So I was watching them all the time, and I was like, "That's where I knew her from."
That's crazy. So
Yeah,
so I want to say this because I think that athletes sometimes and women in general don't
yeah,
give themselves enough credit. So
yeah,
you were talking about how a little bit uncomfortable you were the high school coach and you
yeah.
played with all these people, but you're Whitney Bays. Okay? I think that we as women forget that, not to be not it's not a cocky thing, but you had done a really like you were really good.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you have just as much right to be there as anyone else.
Thank you.
You do.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was
So
I don't know what it was, but I just didn't see it that way. I just was like I'm a little fish in a big pond now
it's
trying to get
okay.
my
I
way
think
up
I
there.
think that women in general have that
Yeah.
self-confidence, that imposter syndrome, some kind of,
Yeah.
ways. So how did you got the job at Garner Webb, and
Uh-huh.
um you were there for what, 2 years?
Just a year.
Just a year. Okay,
Mhm.
so when Coach Simmons got the job in Memphis,
Mhm.
y'all all came. Like, did you
Yeah.
just get in your car and like pack up right then, or was it a hard decision?
Basically, I knew, like I said, I wanted to move up, especially competitively. America, Memphis is a bigger conference. They've got plans of going to an even bigger conference.
Right.
So I just thought for like my career, it would be the best thing to do. Now, of course, I had like reservations because I do have my daughter. It's
Sure.
further away from home, things like that. But again, going kind of back to like our family support system, I knew I had support from Coach Alex, and that
Right.
I was lucky enough to have the opportunities that a lot of moms in coaching don't really get, to have my kid travel
Sure.
with me, and she can be in practice, and yeah, so I knew I was lucky in that sense.
So, because you do have a busy schedule today, and I'm gonna I
Yeah.
got through some great parts, but just for everybody out there, I want to make sure that please, 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 please come and watch the University of Memphis women's basketball program.
Yes.
It's going to be a fantastic season, and I'm so excited. When do you guys officially start? Because right now you're in conditioning and doing that kind of stuff, and I think the last week of or next week you guys start
Next week, yep,
official
it's
official
coming up on
practice.
us.
It
Yeah.
is coming up. So we're gonna just say goodbye now. So I'll put Whitney's Instagram and Twitter, and all my screens are going in the wrong direction. I'll put all your social media in our show notes.
Okay.
And then
Perfect.
also we'll have all the Memphis women's basketball stuff there as well. Any last words before we say goodbye to you?
No, just come out if you can and catch a game. We're a very energetic coaching staff, so we'll be getting hyped on the bench. And hopefully we can continue, our momentum from last season into this season. And our expectations are pretty high for ourselves. So I'm
I,
excited.
I am so excited as well. I really am. So, guys, this is it for today. We'll be back with another episode, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you. Bye, guys.